Hey everybody, well I had the great privilege the other day of interviewing Doug Place. He's the Chief Marketing Officer for Nando's. He couldn't quite believe that a guy with the surname Chicken was phoning up the Marketing Director of Nando's and asking to talk. I've long admired Nando's branding and marketing and advertising and wondered if it would be possible to talk to him. He was gracious enough to accept the invitation and we sat down and had a fascinating discussion. Doug graduated top of his class in honors at Wits University in marketing, climbed the marketing career ladder very quickly before landing the top job at Nando's 5 years ago. And what an incredible time and what an incredible difference he has made to Nando's branding. It's incredible. We sat down and we had one of the best discussions I think I've had in many years. Here's Doug Place, everybody. Enjoy. Well, hey everybody, it's such a pleasure to be with you today. I've got with me today Doug Place, who's the Chief Marketing Officer for Nando's. So welcome, Doug. Really nice to have you with us.
Yeah, really good to be here. Thank you for having me. What a flattering invitation.
Yeah, so this, as I was saying to you earlier, this recording today will be aired not only to the churches around in our group, so around South Africa in our group, but also to our business leaders in Thrive Church, which is the name of our church. And one of the things we try and do is just add value to the business community, especially at this time, just by speaking to interesting business leaders and business leaders who we think could add value to their journey at this stage. And of course, many of our business leaders at this stage are wondering about how to brand their business and how to get in front of customers and how to, I guess, make the most of the airtime that gets afforded to them. So quick story to start. Always been an admirer of Nando's marketing. Always loved it. My surname is Chicken.
I know, and I'll avoid chicken jokes if you do.
So wherever I go in the world, when they say chicken, really, I go as in Nando's, and the name is becoming more universally and more globally known. I could do that in Washington DC a few years ago. I could do it in London. So the brand really is getting out there. You guys are brilliant at branding. I was just looking the other day at a garage where we stopped. There was a Nando's. The guys had put on. It was up on the doors. There was a little thing that said pull, and then it said relax. Nobody saw you push anyway, and sharing is not caring, and that kind of thing. So your branding has always fascinated me, to be honest, and I just think it's so effective. And I wanted to just start really and ask you how it is that, because I think the one thing that strikes us about Nando's is it feels like the brand gets South Africa. It feels like they're a brand that understands the South African, understands the South African mindset, and the kind of feeling like sitting as a consumer or a customer, the feeling that I get when I see Nando's, when I encounter Nando's, is that you're with us as a regular South African. And
wow.
It almost feels like you empathize with the average South African's journey, you know? So I wanted to start by just asking you a little bit about your marketing strategy. Is that positioning that I've just sort of put to you, is that been deliberate and conscious? Maybe you could just talk us a little bit about how Nando's got to the space where you are at the moment, branding.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I hope I can get a copy of this recording so I can send it to my boss.
I'll send it to you.
I have a really great boss, but if there's any concern that the positioning we have isn't landing, it clearly is. So you've hit the nail on the head. I suppose in marketing there are sort of two kind of poles to bear in mind. One of which is your positioning, which is what is it that you do that is uniquely you. So if you are structuring, a church or a business or, a school or anything, what is the thing that makes you you? And that positioning, very simply should be, what makes you different and better than a potential alternative.
Yeah.
So, in Nando's terms, it's the world's best flame grilled peri-peri chicken. Like no one can do that like we can. That at a product level, that's what that is. On the other side of it, you have this idea of brand personality, which is if the brand was a human being, what would they be like? Would they be young? Would they be old? Would they be serious? Would they be frivolous? Would they be funny? And often you can get a little bit confused that you're trying to sell someone your personality rather than selling your position. And at the end of the day, people, are going to be persuaded by a mixture of both.
Right.
So to just talk about flame grilled peri-peri chicken, whilst we're confident in that as I suppose a consumer promise, it has to come across in a way that is creatively interesting. And in the story of South Africa, and this is a couple 100-year-old story. It's almost always told from the perspective of someone who's come from somewhere else and come here. And in the food story, it's about international brands like KFC. There's no Kentucky in South Africa, right? Or McDonald's or Burger King even. And that and that's true of the kind of the jeans you buy at stores, the cars you drive. Very few of these things are inherently South African. So one of the things which we uniquely have as Nando's is that we are proudly born here in South Africa, and our story is about how we started here and went to the world, and not the story of how the world necessarily came here.
Yeah.
And to do that really authentically, and it's hard to pull the wool over eyes. People are far cleverer than they think, right? Except for Twitter. Twitter is not a good evaluation of humanity. People are far, far smarter than they really are. I'll talk about that in just a second. There's almost no correlation to sentiment on Twitter and the real world. Thank heavens.
Yeah.
Nothing's as bad as that. But the personality of Nando's is, it's got to be slick and smart and South African and fun. And if it's not any of those things, then we don't make it.
Right.
And what we try to do, and you use the word empathy, which is dead on, which is, when we speak to people, you understand that, to interrupt someone's life with an advert is a profoundly irritating experience. Like very few people say, I love ads. Let's turn on the TV tonight and watch ads. Like, let's go to the internet and go to all our favorite websites. And I hope all those pop-up ads are awesome. Like, no one says this, right? Yeah. So from an advertising perspective, you're taking advantage of someone's attention. And there's a cost to that. And if you can do that in a way which is rewarding and not irritating or confusing or boring, then you can use that attention, to land a persuasive message. And if you can do that empathetically in a way that says, yeah, when I do open a restaurant door and marked push and actually I need to pull, most people know that experience. So you're connecting to something that's true. It's not manufactured. It's not sensationalized. You're meeting people where they're at. And if you can do that in really unexpected ways, like a door handle, then you, over time, build enough trust with someone that when you do interrupt them in their favorite TV program or a billboard or a pop-up ad on the internet, there's a reward to it. They look forward to it. It's fun. There's a payoff there. So, man, empathy is the heart of the world. I mean, it's very hard to do anything without empathy.
Yeah, fabulous. So it's connecting to the human experience, really, hey?
Yeah. You meet people where they're at, not where you wish they were.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned something so interesting earlier about how if you can do that consistently, then you build trust.
Yeah.
And consistent connection to the human experience does result in trust. Any businessman who delivers a product or business that delivers a product consistently eventually builds trust if that human experience associated with it is good. Similar to churches, if our churches connect to the human experience consistently, we are speaking about the issues that people are wondering about, asking about, thinking about. If we are speaking into the lived experience of people, they begin to trust the church as a space that will address issues that actually happens on Monday to Saturday in their lives as opposed to just Sunday.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a realness to it. So, and I think where a lot of brands and companies get it wrong, and man, I've made this mistake plenty of times, is you can't treat people where you think they should be, right? And a lot of commercials have almost a fantasy associated with, like, this is what your life could be like if only you bought this product. Yeah. And there's a degree to which that is, impactful, but it's not real to people. And, if they don't feel understood to begin with, it's very hard to persuade them to behave any differently.
Right.
So being really honest and human about it, is critical. We're a people business through and through. Almost most businesses are, church or otherwise.
Yeah. So like that empathy and that connection, that realness or that reality, are you saying that results in influence? I hadn't drawn that connection before, but in marketing terms, I guess that's true.
Yeah, it's again, people are rightfully quite suspicious about advertising and marketing. It's like, you use these dark sort of consumer arts to like sway people into buying things they do not need to impress people they do not like. I've heard that a lot. And it's the evils of materialism are often laid at the feet of marketers, and with some good reason. Hopefully, that's not something that we actively set out to do. What we do, and what churches can do, and what most business can do, is you fundamentally solve a very real problem. And persuasion is around convincing people that the problem they have, in Nando's case, hunger. I'm hungry, and I don't know what to have for lunch, or cooking my own meal is difficult or onerous, or I don't have a kitchen nearby. We solve that problem for people in a way that's really interesting, and then in return for solving that problem, they give us money. There's a transaction associated with that. And so you don't make the problem. The problems are there. And if the church is really sensitive to what are the very real problems faced by people, and you have that consistency and that trust, then the partnership you have is where that exchange takes place. And that I would call persuasive.
Right.
As to convincing you of a need to have something that you don't need.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I think one of the things that strikes people about Nando's marketing often is the creativity. I don't know how many people I speak to consistently that go, how did they get that ad out so quickly after something happened politically? Can you talk us through speed and creativity? Because it feels at times in our creative process that speed and creativity are like mutually exclusive. It's like, feels impossible to come up with something creative quickly, How do you guys, what is your creative process? Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. It's some things take time. So if you're going to make a television commercial from kind of brief to execution, that can take 6 months. So some things do take time, and so craft matters, and deliberation matters, and being thoughtful about the choices you make in that process really does matter. But that said, I think the adverts that people most recognize, and this comes again to the heart of we care about South Africans in South Africa. So being able to participate in the news of the day has always been important to us. So it is a learned skill, and like any skill, you need to practice it, and it's a discipline. And in the early days, it was mostly delivered through newspapers or print adverts. So we'd see something in the press, and there would be a zeitgeist attached to it, and there'd be then it wasn't social media; it was the braai or the dinner table or the cooler conversation. And if there was enough kind of interest around it, then to play that back to South Africans in that slick and smart and funny South African way, and if there was a way to integrate a product message with that, then it's an advert. And all that's really happened is we've switched out the newspaper publishing of that ad to basically the internet. That process, in order to be quick there, it's mostly copy driven, so there's no image. You don't photograph something or film someone. And the way we use language is a very South African way. Very few South Africans speak only one language, so we have this kind of hybridized Kombe style kind of which we talk, and that's not a black thing, a white thing, a man thing, a woman thing. Like, we all have that. So being able to be flexible with language, and key to Nando's advertising is wordplay and puns and subtle references to do they really mean that? That the cleverness to it. Now those ideas are, anyone can have them, so it's a totally democratic process. As the boss, I joke about this often, like, my role is to pay people and approve leave forms. Like, I can't be the loudest voice in the room from a creativity perspective. Some of the best ads we've made have come from very junior people, have come from like the finance team, have come from, someone pushing the drinks trolley going, listen, I saw this thing, wouldn't it be funny if you did X? So being able to be, take your ego out of it. It doesn't matter whose idea it is. It matters that it's the best idea. And if it's slick, smart, South African, and funny, and, we can say this really expediently, we have, the Nando's font belongs to us. It's ours. That's a hand-painted font from a sign writer in Mozambique, where a lot of our food philosophy comes from. So you can't copy it. Right? Many have tried. I mean, we have fake adverts regularly. I love South Africa for that. Like we often get like people making Nando's ads, and the good ones we kind of let slide, and the bad ones we have to kind of get involved and say, "Hi, well, that's offsides." So, being able to put it in that font straight away gives you the recognition that this is a Nando's ad, and it's there and it's in the moment. You also can forecast when there's going to be a news item. So when there is a State of the Nation address, or Cyril's going to tell us about lockdown level 3.275 section B, like there's going to be chatter about it. So you can be prepared for it. So you're not just reacting to the news, but you're kind of forecasting. And we know that they're going to be pretty key events. And then over time, people come to expect Nando's to say it. So you don't have to then interrupt them with the message. They come to you saying, listen, what do you think about the State of the Nation address? What did you think about the Orlando Pirates derby? What do you think about Somizi and, Trevor Noah? And so you have a fertile ground. And again, this comes after 32, 33 years of being able to meet people where they're at and doing it in a really honest way, that they trust and they like you. And they respect you. And even, we're a nice brand, but we do tell the truth. And sometimes, if there's not that equal part terror and excitement, then, I'm not doing my job.
Yeah. But I think that's so key. Like you do tell the truth, because I think it all paints the same picture of authenticity, right? So it's a real South African brand. There's not only knowledge of what's going on in the country, but like this empathy that goes with it. And then there's this, we are going to tell the truth, even if it's politically incorrect.
Sure. Especially if it's politically incorrect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think truth telling is refreshing today, isn't it?
Well, in your good book, it sets you free, apparently. So we want
to... Absolutely. Language really makes a difference. I mean, how does the crafting of the language take place? And the reason I ask this is because I guess so many business leaders are thinking about how to position their business with their language, but as people involved in church, week in, week out, we're influencing people with language. Can you talk us a little bit about the craft of language?
Man, that's it's often a forgotten art, and in an Instagram world, language is very simple. It gets relegated to hashtags. It's a shame, because I mean, if the world was literally spoke into being, then language definitely matters. And when you use language, you make worlds, and you can make a reality for people, in whether that's helping them describe their current situation or working with them to create a new situation. So language is everything, man. It's a lot more powerful than people think it is. In the Nando's context, it's balancing a few things. One of which is you want to be really clear in what you're saying. So we try and avoid jargon or internal terminology that means something to us but doesn't mean something to someone else. Again, that comes back to empathy. And being able to be as efficient as you possibly can. And increasingly, as people are used to this fragmentation of media, where you can consume a news feed where everything is in 140 character kind of bytes, people are accustomed to the heuristics or the shortcuts of decoding messages and what they mean. So that being able to use that in your context is the 45-minute sermon is incredibly powerful, but in order to get people's attention there and to be able to hold it for 45 minutes or 14 minutes or whatever the appropriate length is to get that message across, it does require a lot of finesse and a lot of skill. So the people that we look to that are really good at it are stand-up comics. I mean, it's the last discipline that can really speak truth to power. And will hold people's attention in a one-way kind of dialogue. It's not a conversation. It's one person with a microphone, and they have to earn the right for you to pay attention to them. And just the way in which they convey the truth, but package it in palatable ways, which is one of the gifts of humor, is something that we're deeply, deeply inspired by. We watched the Donald Trump HBO documentary, the interview. I think it was last week. Not because we're particularly interested in his political views, but if you watch how that conversation took place, it's like a boxing match. and how two people just fundamentally miss each other for 45 minutes is entertaining. But you learn from that, like, we don't ever want to be in a situation where we miss the target of, who we want to speak to. And we want to be able to make sure that we're hearing them effectively as well, so that we can get better at empathy and humanity.
Yeah.
So those are little tips and tricks that we do. We're still learning.
Yeah. Thank you. Talking about South Africa, and just you started by saying how we're born here, and Nando's born here and spread to the world. And just a few words of encouragement for a businessman who's wondering, or business person, business owner who's wondering about being born in South Africa, and is there a business future for them? Like, would you maybe just speak a few words of encouragement around the opportunities and the prospects that you see here?
In South Africa specifically?
South Africa specifically.
Yeah, sure. Look, it's tempting to be triumphalist and sentimental, because we're a very successful South African-born business. I think, after Anglo-American, probably the most successful. So I don't want to come across as, unduly arrogant or sentimental about South Africa, because where we are really sucks. Can we just be honest about that? It's really, really difficult to run a business in South Africa, and it has been for a long time, and it's particularly difficult now. And it's not just difficult, it's made all the more frustrating because the leadership we have in both the public and private sector consistently seems to be so obviously disappointing. And if there are sins of commission, there are also sins of omission, and we have long lists of both. So I want to be really real and say it sucks right now. It's really gross. Nando's went from its most successful year last year to loss making this year, and we didn't deserve that. And frankly, neither do most of the business people hopefully listening to this. So I just want to be really clear that it's okay that you're having self-doubts, and it's grim, and and it's tempting to fall into despair. That happens regularly, even to us. So I want to be really clear about that. What I will say, though, is all great brands, all of them, every single one you can ever think of, the Walt Disney Company, Apple, Ford Motor Company, Nando's, all of these great brands were born in a time of tremendous upheaval and chaos. You can go back and you can happily research that. Right? The Ford Motor Company came out of the 1920s and 30s in that depression. The Walt Disney Company kind of in and around the war. Apple in the 80s. Nando's in 1987. 1987 was a terrible time to start a restaurant brand in South Africa, and it only really found its feet 10 or so years later. And in the great kind of in the Genesis tradition, is the story of creation is told, the first step of any creative act is chaos. So if you're looking to do something new, you can't run away from the chaos. Unfortunately, it's the essential ingredient. It's the soup by which all great things are made. And so I want to be really clear that the chaos is grim and it's rubbish. But you have to believe, and I do, that in that chaos is the spirit hovering over those waters. And you have to be still enough to be able to hear what that is, and then to embrace the chaos as not the opposite of progress. It's the ingredient of progress. And so whilst I am incredibly sad and despondent about the immediate conditions in South Africa, man, we made a commercial in 2016, and it was the first of its kind for Nando's, because it was just as the ANC elective conference was taking place, and we didn't know who was going to assume the responsibility of the ruling party. The Guptas, were pretty much running amok, doing whatever they wanted to do in the country. And we started to hear a really new tune from the South African public, which was, we're just going to be another failed African state, right? We're going to be just like Zimbabwe. We're going to be just like every other kind of, failed South African democracy, And that was really new. We hadn't heard that before. And if despair is a song, it's a song that only has one note. And that note, let me sing you the song of despair. Nothing changes, right? It's going to be rubbish. It always has been rubbish. And it's never going to be any different. And that was really new. So we made this commercial where it wasn't fanciful and it wasn't hyperbole. So we just collected a bunch of historical events, both funny as well as, less funny, from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission through to, the vuvuzela, which is the gift we gave the world that no one wanted. And we reminded South Africans that we have always faced difficult times, and we can face these difficult times too. And we're a proud and resilient and creative nation. We are far more integrated than we give ourselves credit for. We have a long way to go on transformation, but we've come a long way as well. And we can face the chaotic potential that we find, and we can make something of it. We always have. This commercial in 2016, it didn't have any chicken in it. It had a Nando's logo on at the end, and of course it's a Nando's logo throughout all of it. And I didn't sleep for like at least 2 nights before we flighted it, because this thing is, who are we to preach, right? Well, who are we not to? And what happened was Cyril came to power, the Guptas then fled the country, and all of these things which we imagined would happen in the commercial came to pass. And it was the most loved commercial in South Africa for the year. And so I would argue that times are tougher now than then. But if you look at what we've overcome and the giants that we have slain, we can slay these things too. And it's going to take grit and fortitude and strength and courage. And it's okay to cry on tough days, but we're going to be okay. I think we're going to be okay. We're going to make it. This is how creation happens. And, the final word isn't entropy, right? The final word is a prosperous city. So let's work towards it. Let's build it. And we need all of you and you and you and you and you to do it with us. It's not up to Anders. It's not up to the church. It's up to everyone. So fire it up, man.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Honestly, that is so good. Just listening to you, Doug, it reminds me, churches, businesses, all of us, civil society, we actually are called to be social architects. We really are called to architect the society that we want to see. It's much more profound than just selling a product or preaching a sermon. We are architecting the fabric of our society.
Yeah.
You mentioned something earlier about you started to hear a new song from the South African public. How did you hear that? And the reason I ask that is really important that as pastors and leaders particularly, we be able to hear the zeitgeist.
We're famous for talking, we're famous for the advertising, we're famous for making people laugh and smile. But actually what we do more of, and what I'm more proud of, is the ability to listen. I spend most of my time just listening. And there are professional ways to do it through formal market research. But it starts with the question is, why is this important to people? Why is this topic trending on social media? Why is it that that's the news headline? Why is it that that's the dinner conversation? And if you can get beyond just the what, the where, the when, and the how of whatever the subject is, and say, look, why is that there? And then if there's a good answer to that, and that's related to other things, you can join those dots. And that's how we got to. This isn't about the ANC. This isn't about KPMG. This isn't about crime out of control. This is about all of those things, and all of those things are rooted in, we can't see a world that's better than the one we live in, which is what despair is. And then you can go, okay, well, if despair is the villain, then who's the hero for that villain? And it's going to be hope. Now, we could just paint the flag on our face and sing Shosha Loza and remember 95 and hope that people just feel better. And they will feel better for 30 seconds, but they'll go back to despair immediately. You've got to be really honest about the dragon you're facing, the giant you're facing, and the difficulty of the situation. So you have to still be honest and not just sentimental about it. But if you can get to the why behind the how, the what, the why, and the when, then you're on the first step to do something useful.
Fabulous. Doug, this conversation has been so incredibly rich, honestly.
Oh, wow, thank you.
I could listen to you for hours, really.
Careful. I'll tell my team that.
Before we close, just 2 minutes. Like, if you were speaking to a business owner or a church leader now, 3 things that you think they should do in order to get their brand out there.
Sure. Okay. It'll be a bit of a recap. So the first is it's not about you and your brand. It's about meeting an unmet need.
Good.
Right. And in order to know what that unmet need is, you're going to have to do a lot of listening and a lot of thinking. Right. And a lot of brands come from the perspective of, I have this. How do I tell people about what I have? And unless you can really honestly answer what it is that you have and what needs does this meet in the world, it's going to be really hard to persuade people otherwise. Start with that. Secondly, I would say, be honest. The Nando's brand, it's not going to work unless the chicken tastes good. I can make the best ads in the world. In fact, when I started, I asked our co-founder, Fernando Duarte, so it's his son's name that's above the door, Nando. And I said, well, what was your proudest piece of Nando's marketing? Like, hit me with the wisdom. I want to do good here. And he said, well, in the mid-90s, the business was under a lot of pressure. So they cost engineered the basting that goes on the product. Now, the basting is the most expensive thing we buy, for a lot of good reasons. But they couldn't afford it, so they changed the recipe. And it didn't taste as good, but they saved a lot of money. And he was really worried about it. So he went to the marketing director at the time and he said, listen, I need you to stop all adverts. Because if we tell people to come in and taste this product, we're basically advertising something that's not good and they're never going to come back. So his best example of marketing was to not do marketing. I've never forgotten that. I thought he would tell me about some of the classic Nando's ads.
Wow.
So understand that, marketing and putting your brand out there isn't just about what you say, it's about who you are and what you're like. And it's the easiest thing in the world for me to make a promise to people. It's far harder to know that that promise is going to be kept. So make sure that whatever the touch points are around your brand and your organization, it's not up to the marketing department, but everyone is a marketer. I have 14,000 people in my marketing team in South Africa. Because the best billboard isn't going to make up for the fact that a griller might burn the chicken, right? I can't fix that. So I need to make sure that griller understands the importance of the promise that I'm making on his behalf. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is, have fun. It's not so serious. You're going to get some stuff wrong. And it's particularly at a time now where we're in a liminal space. We're in the space between space. It's not life as we know it, and it's not life as the world to come. We're somewhere in the middle. You can try some stuff, have fun, be curious, make some mistakes. And I think don't be ruled by the fear of screwing up. The fear of not trying should be a lot louder voice than the fear of screwing something up.
Fantastic.
It's gonna be okay.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Honestly.
Oh, thank you.
So rich. Lots of wisdom. We're gonna love watching this over and over. We so appreciate your time, Doug. Thanks very, very much.
Oh, and thank you for asking. And let's make a better world, man.
Absolutely.